Hello, Vincent D. Mercer. Hello, friends. Thank you for joining me today. So I am continuing for, I don't know, I lost track of how many hours. I need to start counting this job in days. I'm afraid to say how many days have I been working and how many more days do I have to go. Hello, Barbara. Good to have you on board. Thanks for catching me today. It's late in the afternoon. I've already been working on this job here today for a couple of hours at least, maybe three and a half. Before that, I did touch up on 4 different paintings this morning, and I thought about bringing you on board, but I just didn't. Sometimes I just have to get work done without your lovely company, if you know what I mean. But I have been sitting here happily listening to all kinds of podcasts. History, philosophy, science, psychology, theology, culture is my podcast of choice. And that was quite the list, wasn't it? Not so much pop culture, not so much sports. It's all right. It's a good thing somebody watches sports because all those people need to get paid. I'm always trying to listen to things that will increase my personal value, I guess. Maybe one word I could use. Okay, let's talk about the job at hand. Again, quick introduction to those of you who haven't been here before. I'm working on a book cover. The 50 illustrations inside the book are in black and white. This is an early rough sketch. Here's a photograph of my daughter. You can see I used that for her body. Here's the very, very finished charcoal illustration that I put together. I'm really using this now. This is why I did this. I wanted to work out in charcoal and black and white. I wanted to work out the values, the lights and darks. And I hope you can see from this illustration, the lights, it's all about lights and darks and their placement. And it's a very dark illustration with just a little bit of light coming through the trees and a lot of light hitting the girl and the ground right at her feet. So that's all very important, and now I'm using that. So again, forgive me for those of you who have been with me for a while. Why do I call this state of the art? Well, again, forgive me for sounding arrogant. I'm sure there's somebody in the world, somewhere, who's doing perhaps a more sophisticated, I am not sure this at all, but I'm being humble and saying I'm sure there's somebody somewhere doing a more sophisticated pen and ink technique, but I don't know about them. And if somebody out there knows about somebody, or if you are such a person, by all means, let me know. I'm for some reason, I'm picturing some either Chinese person who, my respect for Chinese artists is astronomical, and my respect for Russian artists is likewise astronomical. It's pretty much the cultures who avoided the ridiculous temper tantrum of the 20th century are still producing outrageously skilled art and artists. I'll try to avoid that big conversation today because I'm not in the mood to do it. Anyway, so why do I call it state of the art? Because again, I don't know anybody that's doing a more sophisticated. So the fact is, rapidograph pens mostly filled with different colors of what I call ink, but it's actually liquid acrylics. Again, this is all repeat for those of you who've been following me. This is Aeroflash airbrush color made by Holbein. I understand they've discontinued it, but it's still available on the market, and they've probably started making something to take its place. So first of all, colored ink. Secondly, and here's the real issue, count them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 layers of Mylar. 3 layers of Mylar, get it? Drawing front and back. Let me zoom in real quick this was actually done with a plain old Sharpie marker. This is layer number, and I have it all numbered because it's Sharpie marker layer number 4 scratched out a little bit, and then number 5. So you can see that the Sharpie on the front of Mylar is more intense, darker than what was done on the back. And that's, of course, the case with every layer. So why am I doing multiple layers? Well, I have certainly experimented along these lines before. This is not new to me, although for the last 15 years, my primary art career has been oil painting. For the 30 years before that, yeah, at least 30 years prior, well, 25 years prior to 15 years ago, there we go. My primary career path was as an illustrator, and as an illustrator, my number one medium was pen and ink. So in that sense, and because of that, it's not ironic that my number one video, as far as views, 2.6, coming up on 2.7 million views, is Pen and Ink Cross Hatching Masters Edition. Okay, so this is if you will, a follow-up to that video that was produced 4 years ago, and I'm calling it Pen and Ink State of the Art. Again, because of the complexity, the richness. I would love for Kohinoor, who makes the Rapidograph pens, I would love for them to come to their senses and realize that some very sophisticated artwork is being done with their tools, with their pens. The last time I saw, and it's been a while, last time I saw the ad that they were using to advertise was very, very, very primitive and not at all satisfactory, in my opinion, for advertising the quality of their product. And I'm assuming you've figured out already what the purpose for the multiple layers is. The reason is what I put on the front is the most intense color. What I put on page 2 is second in intensity. Got it? What's on page 3, which at the moment is this blue, this great dark gray, blood brown, and this gold, is number 4, and then number 5, and number 6. Did I do that right? I should have ended up saying the number 6. So I just got, it's 6 layers, and it gives me immense control, not only over the color, but more importantly, over the values. Most of you know pen and ink. What's the downside of traditional pen and ink is how do you render a number 1 value? That is on a 0 to 10. 1 is pure white and 10 is pure black. Those are very easy in pen and ink. 1 is blank paper. The other is you cover the paper completely, probably with a brush. How do you get a number 1 or number 2 or number 3 value? Very hard to do with pen and ink, but I'm doing it with colored ink and, of course, on Mylar. So in this area in here, and I'll zoom in, you probably can't see this, but right there, can you see a little bit of texture and a little bit of color? Oh, here, I'll turn on the light. Whoa, there's a lot of color there. But of course, that's not the way it's going to be reproduced. It's going to be reproduced like this. But be that as it may, the scanner, when I come to scanning this artwork, the scanner will easily pick up that texture. And so the multiple layers gives me an outrageous degree of control of my values. And here in the dark parts of the illustration, I don't really need that control. I can just I've used it somewhat. See, I've done dark here and darker here. But it's pretty easy to get dark with pen and ink. What is hard is to get light and midtone. So I'm using the multiple layers to a very high degree here in the midtone. Again, what do I mean by midtone? Here's my guide, right? The soft areas. I'm going to come back and do these little firefly dots very late in the process. That will be quite fun. And so far, I'm not using any white or light opaque media. I'm accomplishing everything. If I want something lighter, coming in here with a scratch board tool and lifting off. Now the challenge is, of course, I have to find out which layer this, for instance, this orange ink here. Yeah, it's on the top layer. So once I know that, I can come in here and scratch and lighten that just a little bit. And I can lighten it on this layer. I'm assuming you're catching all this. Okay, and then the light table helps me a great deal. Now, again, just a little bit where I'm going with this. I want the overall impact, color, tone of this woods to be very sepia, brownish, antique brown. And I'm achieving some of that look up here. But when someone looks carefully, I want, as you can see here, I'm assuming, I want them to see sort of an aqua color here, red, brown, yellow, purple, and so on. Do you see? So for those people, the audience, the people who view this book cover, who are inclined toward visual sensitivity, I want to reward them with the prize. It's like, ooh, look at, there's green and purple and red and blue and so on and so forth. Get it? Did I do that voice right? Ooh! That is the voice of a visually sensitive person being rewarded for their labors. I've talked about this quite a bit before. Not the majority, a significant part of the viewing public, whoever sees this book cover, there will be a significant portion, not the majority, but I'm aiming at 20, 30, 40%, who will not notice these multiple colors, just because that's the way their brain is wired. They're good at something else in the world. They're good at business, finance, relationships, sports, athletics, who knows what, but they're not particularly visually sensitive. They will miss the subtlety unless a friend of theirs points it out. Oh, did you notice? Look at this. And even after it's pointed out to them, a person who is not particularly visual, and this is, do you understand? This is not a slam. This is just acknowledges that we are all different. If you have a contest that involves art, you probably want me on your team. If you want a contest that involves some high degree of athletic prowess, you do not want me on your team. You will pick me last, just as I was very often picked last in middle school for softball, kickball, football, whatever it was. Okay, I think that I have pretty much outgrown. Thank you, Susan. It has come a long way. I think I've pretty much outgrown all the trauma of my childhood of being picked last, or nearly last, for a lot of things. We all go through it. God help the kid who doesn't ever get picked last for anything and gets picked first for everything. We call those people physically attractive, by the way. God help them, because they are growing up with such a perverted, twisted, distorted view of reality that they're probably going to have a hard time in adult life dealing with the fact that not everybody loves them simply because they're beautiful, especially when they start turning into their 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, and that beauty largely fades. They better have developed some skills that are not dependent on their beautiful skin, teeth, eyes, nose, and body. Woo! Boy, that was a mouthful, wasn't it? Anyway, so we've all been dealt a rough blow by the outrageous slings of outrageous fortune, haven't we? If you don't think you have, it's just because you're in denial. Boy, I didn't know I was going to go here today, but I think I'll just let that rest of that little tirade rest. Life's hard. Life's hard. Okay, now, not anybody watching this broadcast, at least not right now, but some people watching this broadcast probably later are going to say, golly, that's an awful... You're the best in the world. Yes, I hope to be one of the best in the world in oil. That is certainly my goal. That is certainly my goal. I have my work cut out for me. Oh my goodness, because there are so many outrageously good artists. All I care about outrageously good artists is, what do they know that I don't know yet? Because I want to know what they know. And oh my goodness, yeah. Anyway. There are going to be some people that say, man, that is just way too much work. Hey, Susan. Artists hang together, right? This is an outrageous amount of work. And again, in my first video that went viral, the Pen and Ink Cross-Hatching Masters Edition, I received many comments along the lines of like, oh, that's way too much work. And every time I get one of those comments, the little cash register in my brain goes, ka-ching. Vocational security. Because for every one of the lazy people, I'm being overly exaggerating here, who declares that my technique is too much work, I understand that my employment security quotient increases. Because part of the reason that I earn a living as an artist and most people don't. Oh, Tim Horn. I'm going to try to look that up, Barbara. Thank you. I love hearing about, oh my God. And again, I know sometimes I come off on my broadcast sounding arrogant. My arrogance, besides just being born of the fact that I'm an SOB arrogant person sometimes, is usually, though, born of a passion, and a passion to aid and help people the age of my children, who are now all in their 30s. And not only my children, but yours as well. I am this pretty much, now a few years ago, this wasn't the case. My wife was a very successful network marketing professional. Those of you in the business know what I mean by that. She was good at it. She helped a number of people and a number of lives. But her mother moved in with us. Her elderly mother moved in with us several years ago. And that definitely put the kibosh on my wife's career. So I have been the sole breadwinner in our family for a number of years now. And not only that, last year, my daughter and her husband and 4 kids also moved in with us. So just to give you some idea, I'm supporting 1 2/3 families on my artwork. So I don't know if I'm successful or not, but I live in a reasonably house. I mean, I'm not rich by any means, but my expenses are kind of through the roof, and I'm doing it all on an artist's income. I should add a little bit of ministry income, which I don't talk about, by the way, and I'm not going to. I consider this my art website is not the place. Even I am not ashamed of my spiritual, the side of me, but I don't want to use it to freak out my secular audience. Susan, you make a fantastic point. Thank you. Susan just said, the fact that I'm making a living as an artist probably pushed my artwork along. And Susan, you are dead right. You are exactly correct. Vincent, no kidding, man. I need to look you up. Vincent, are you on the internet? Can I find your stuff somewhere? That sounds fascinating. So we share the technique of acrylic underneath and oil on top, right? And I'm assuming that you're a super realist. Is that correct? Is that right? You sound like Claude Monet. Thank you. That's a crazy compliment. And I know you don't mean that artistically. You mean like how hard I work or who I support. Yeah. Vincent, anyway, fascinating, brother. Please let me know where I can find your stuff. I want to cheer for you. And anyway, back to Susan's comment. I have said, in fact, I wrote in one of my marketing publications years ago when I was an illustrator, I say 3 things have conspired to make me the artist that I am today. Number 1, the joy of creating. Check. I love creating. I love being an artist. Check. Number 2, yeah, family. Monet had a whole lot of hangers-on in the house, did he? And by the way, I'm not complaining about having my children live here. We are loving it. It's a temporary condition, but we're loving it in the meantime. Number 1, joy of creating. What has driven me to be the artist that I am? Number 1, joy of creating. Okay, thank you. I will try to find you on Facebook. Appreciate that. Number 1, joy of creating. Number 2, clients with deadlines. Like this. This man, the man for whom I'm doing this book cover, is anxiously waiting. The last thing he needs to push the publish button on his book is this cover. So that gives me pressure. That clients with deadlines is a very reasonable pressure. But I say the number one reason I am the artist that I am is the threat of starvation. I have to work because no worky, no eaty. That's the world that I live in, the world that I grew up in. I'm glad to say it's the world that the work ethic that I inherited from my parents and their parents before them and their parents before them. And it is also a work ethic that is under grave attack in the Western world. The Robin Hood mentality, those of us who rich, not who are rich. Those of us, Robin Hood mentality is steal from the rich, give to the poor. Those of us who work hard for a living, and white males is the top category there, like it or not. We are supposed to feed all of our, yes, exactly, Susan, you're exactly right. We are supposed to feed the rest of the world and the rest of the population. That's a philosophy with which I disagree vehemently, but I'm not going to get into that beyond that statement, beyond that audaciously politically incorrect statement that I just made. Okay, so 3 things make me the artist that I am. Number 1, the joy of creating. Check. I'm an extremely, extremely blessed man because I get to do for a living what I love to do. In fact, along those lines, I have told this story in person many times. I'm not sure I've ever, it's a short, I don't mean a story, but after a long day of painting or like today, working, drawing, and let's say in the evening, my wife and I get to go out for coffee, not a big date night, not a movie, not a dinner, just go out and hang out and relax a little bit. And we go to a coffee shop. Do you know what I like to do at the coffee shop? I'm laughing at myself here. Do you know what I like to do? Sketch. I am not kidding. Most of the time, given the choice, what would I like to do at a coffee shop? Sketch. That's a pretty good, I'm just confessing here that I'm a blessed man. After a long day of working, what do I want to do? More of the same. Well, the other thing, by the way, for those of you who don't know, the other real, more fuller answer to that is, okay, I want to practice. Yeah, doodle. Exactly, Susan. You got it. Exactly, my friend. I could tell you're a real artist. Bless you. Good for you. May our tribe increase. Besides practicing music, but that disturbs people more. I try to practice, especially when my wife and or mother-in-law are out of the house. And mother-in-law rarely gets out of the house, so she's gracious enough to say, I enjoy hearing you practice. Anyway, so number 1, I'm an extremely blessed man because I get to do what I love to do for a living. There is no question I love it. But I always like to add for my young audience, it ain't no Sunday school picnic. It's not easy. It wasn't easy getting to this point. Who makes the best artists? It's like everything else. By the way, I grew up in a family of musicians, and I usually want to say, I have to add this because, okay, I'm going to be a bit of a snob. Put on your snob armor just for a minute. I'm going to be a bit of a snob. Okay, forgive me, but I'm going to make a point. A lot of people in America say they are a musician or their family is a musician. They grew up in a musical family. Number 1 question is check. How much do you practice? Check, you're a musician. Question number 1, how much do you practice? Because I'm only talking about practicing musicians. I'm not talking about, okay, number 2, by musician, do you mean you play one of these? Guitar, keyboard, bass, or keyboard? The rhythm section. Now, not that there aren't millions of freaking geniuses who play those instruments. There are. But there's also an extreme abundance of people who only play the rhythm instrument, the rhythm section. That's a musical term. Because those happen to be also forgiving. Anyway, never mind. I'm not going to pursue that anymore. Bless you. Everybody who plays an instrument, go for it. Practice, dude. And some of you say, well, I can't practice because of my day job, and by the time I get home, I'm exhausted. My heart goes out to you. And in that case, some of you have to just say, well, how much would you like to practice if you could? And now I'm in that boat too, by the way. Anyway, I got off topic. Let me get back on. Number one, I am an extremely blessed man because I get to do what I love. But do I always love sitting here hour after hour after hour doing cross-hatching? The answer is, are you nuts? Are you kidding? No! This is crazy boring. Crazy. That's why I listen. I love the new world. Before it was internet, years ago, it was books on tape. I loved books on tape. But no matter how you dress it, the monotony factor kicks in sooner or later. Drudgery has been my word lately, and about 6 months ago I was on this big drudgery kick because, and this applies to music as well, skill is developed by he or she who is willing to endure the most drudgery. Now, I know this is true of athletics too. Why is the best bowler? I'm going to pick a funny sport. I don't mean it's funny to those of you who do it, but yeah, I didn't say football, basketball, or baseball, right? Just to pick something a little more obscure. Why is it the best bowlers in the country are the ones who practiced bowling the most? The best. Why is Steph? You have to do your work, not emotion into it. Yeah, that's right. Correct, Susan. You're right. So there's this discipline. Susan just said that's the problem with commissioned work. You have to do work that you're really not into at the moment, and that is correct. And that is part of the drudgery of being a real artist. But again, what I think I'm being falsely humble here. Exactly, Susan. You have to do it. I'm being falsely humble because I'm not this humble. I'm saying I have a fair degree of skill. Why do I have a fair degree of skill? Because I was willing to pay the price to do the drudgery work of working for other clients. So the ones who endure the most drudgery are the ones who develop the most skill. And that is almost a lost art. Here's another. There is a very ancient piece of folk wisdom literature. I will leave it at that. You can find it by Googling these two words: craftsmen terrify. And there's a very deep principle at work. I just became familiar with this folk proverb, if you will, in the last year or so. But I've taken it to heart. There is a sense in which people who have developed real craftsmanship, and again, that is also exactly, Susan, you're exactly correct. There is the people in this world, in any arena whatsoever, who develop real craftsmanship. Brain surgery. Why, I have my son's wife's brother is a brain surgeon. And my goodness, the boy, I call him a boy, he's in his mid-late 30s now, has been in school ever since I heard about him. Not just in school, he's been in residency. He's graduated from school and he's been in residency for the last 6 years. Why? Because he is a brain surgeon. He's good. You want a brain surgeon that's good. You want a brain surgeon who has endured almost untold hours of drudgery. That's who you want braining on my... Thank you, Kolomami. Thank you. Isn't that sweet? And I'm going to continue to tweak with it. Like, this is a little too green. This is a little too yellow. This is a little too purple. So I'm going to be tweaking all of these colors for a good many hours. Anyway, who do you want working on? You are right, Vincent. You are right. That is a completely separate skill and a very important one. In fact, it's sort of an odd corollary to what I'm saying. Let me finish my comment. That who do you want doing brain surgery? You want the surgeon who has spent untold hours enduring the pain of drudgery. Drudgery is painful. That's my point. It's inescapable. If you want to be excellent at something, you must endure drudgery. And some people evidently will not endure drudgery. The extreme cases of that, we have a name for them. We call them street people. We call them unemployed. We call them welfare people. We call them broke, poor, homeless. Those are people in the extreme who will not endure drudgery. Every job involves some degree of drudgery, and every skill requires a very high degree of drudgery. Now, my friend Mercer, that's the only name I'm pulling up, Vincent, brings up another point, and it's a kind of an odd corollary to this, and that is that there are some people in the arts industry, arts field in particular, who are good at drudgery. And this is one of those themes that makes me scratch my chin and say, in a perfect world, if I could invent a perfect world, and by the way, I very much consider it part of my responsibility as a fairly mature human being. I'll just say fairly. It is my job to try to make this world as perfect as I can, but not drive myself into insanity by that effort, because that won't do anybody any good. But it is part of my job to make the world as perfect. One of the questions is, I have known a number of artists in my lifetime, you may have too, who are exquisitely skilled, and they've endured all kinds of drudgery. They are good at what they do, but partly because of their ability to endure drudgery is a part of their personality that makes them also very socially awkward. This is especially true, I think, among musicians and visual artists. The same person who can endure extraordinary degrees of drudgery pain has a hard time in normal society. And the two factors, I think, are related. The fact that they're capable of enduring much drudgery is related to the fact that they're socially awkward. And back in the Middle Ages, as I understand it, there was a system in place, and I do have hope. I have hope that as the human race, or as human civilization continues to evolve forward or upward, that we will solve this problem to a significant degree. Because in the Middle Ages, there actually was a system in place whereby weird musicians, are you with me? Weird musicians and weird artists could actually survive. That system has been out of place for the last 300 or 400 years. And in a word, it was the patronage of the medieval church. Ironic, very ironic. There are not a lot of good things that you will hear me say about the medieval church. Now, I'm not a medieval church hater like many in our, it's very PC to squall and point fingers at the medieval church. By the way, it's a very ignorant position. Always ignorant to point at people in previous ages of history and judge them, criticize them as if they were stupid. But anyway, I digress. Let me go back to, there was a system in place whereby people who were very socially awkward, they could not make a living, but dang, they could carve stone. Are you with me? And there actually was a system in place where those people, and weird musicians, where they could survive because the church was building cathedrals. Now, some of you are saying, "Oh, cathedrals, that's terrible." No. Okay, that's shallow. And again, very, very shallow, and they did a number of good things. I wish this were a published story, but it's not. But I will describe a story for you that my oldest daughter, of whom I am very proud. She's the one that's living with us right now, and she and her husband have been living with us, and they're 4 kids, ages 7, 5, 3, and 1. They've been living with us for over a year now. Let me say that again. Ages 7. Think about it. 7, 5, 3, and 1. Talk about the most pressured season of a person's life, being a mother of that brood. And my daughter is an absolute saint. I mean, I haven't seen her lose her cool one time. Not one time in a year. My hat's off. She's better than I am. Way better than I am. But she's also very bright. I will say bordering on, if I may be proud papa, from bordering on brilliant, if not brilliant. And when she was in college at University of North Carolina, she wrote a short story. I think it was, or she might have been at NC State. She went to both schools. She wrote a story for a English class. I think it was a composition. And in the story, it was a fiction, but it was the story of a man who spent his entire life working on. I think he was the stained glass guy, working on one cathedral. The story starts out when, as a young man, he leaves his mother and father and goes to a distant land. I presume it was kind of French-ish, or it might have been the other way around. He might have been French and he went to England, but he went far away and apprenticed as a glass cutter. And the story is, I'm not kidding. One of these days I'm going to illustrate her story and we're going to publish it. It brought me to tears, still does, just thinking about it. It's just a precious story of this medieval man who leaves his father and mother, goes away, becomes apprenticed, and learns how to cut glass and make stained glass windows. He writes letters back to his parents, and that is the book, the story that she wrote, were these letters that he wrote back for like 40 years till his parents are dead, and finally he is an old man about to cross the abyss himself. And he spent his entire life building one cathedral, just the stained glass. And for some reason, it is a gripping story. And she doesn't say in the story whether he was socially inept or not, but the point would be, it didn't matter whether he was socially inept. He was able to support himself. I don't know if he ever got married. My vague recollection is that he never did. Never married, never had children, spent his entire life doing one thing, and that is building an edifice to the glory of God. Doesn't matter whether you believe in God. If you're an angry atheist, then none of this conversation has anything to do with you, and I invite you to, gracefully bow out. But if you're just an ordinary atheist, that's okay. You can stick around. But anyway, touching story. And it is true that one of the challenges of our modern, and by the way, that is a key word, and modernity is, I don't know if you know this or not, is fast draining out of our society. I'm speaking here like a philosopher, not like a pop culturalist, okay? The fact that you have an iPhone wristwatch does not mean that we live in modern times. Modernity is a philosophical category, has nothing to do, so to speak, with the technology that precious few of us know how to create. Anyway, that is one of the problems that we have in modern, and I use that word as a philosopher, modern society, is that there is no safety net for people who are so good at what they do. And I suspect that very often, sure, there's a touch of autism on the Asperger's autism range that allows some people to be so focused that they become outrageously good at what they do. And Asperger's is more likely the profile for someone in that category. But in the Middle Ages, there was a safety net, and it was the church. And if a person had the capacity to create like a freaking genius, the church gave them a place to do that. That has not existed since the Middle Ages, and is a loss. I personally have known several artists who were freaking brilliant, if not bona fide geniuses, but they couldn't make a living to save their life. And one of you made a comment in that toward that regard a little while ago, and you're exactly correct. Part of the reason I'm able to make a living is I've managed somehow. Maybe I'm not that good as an artist, and that's okay, because I've managed to hit a sweet spot where I'm pretty good. I'm good enough, but I still am able to navigate generally in general society, which that is the hard part for most of us who are artists. That is the hard part. We have to do. I was painting with several friends last October. In fact, me and Mike Rooney and I, for you grammar police, Mike Rooney and I, you can Google him. Mike Rooney sounds just like it, spelled just like it sounds. Have painted for a week every year together for the last 5 years, and we're going to do it again this year. Anyway, we were all painting together. It's a very serious. We don't get together and party. there's a we rent a house in Ocracoke, North Carolina, any number of houses, and there might be TVs in the houses, but I don't think it's ever been turned on one time. Anyway, so here we are. The life of the contemporary art of the current artist. I don't mean contemporary art, but the life of a current day artist is so obvious. It's called paint and post, paint and post, paint and post. And we were after about the third day, we were all laughing at each other because we all had the same agenda. We go out and paint like crazy people all day long, come in the evening, take pictures, click, 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 click with our phones or our cameras or whatever, and post it on Facebook, Instagram, and in my case, YouTube. So there you go. That's just part of what it takes to be a successful artist. And if you hate, social media, you can't be unless you have a full-time marketing agent, you can't be a successful artist. Unfortunate, very unfortunate, because there are a lot of people who are brilliant artists who ought to be able to make a living at their art, but the social component eliminates them from that possibility. Very unfortunate, heartbreaking, because I would love for these people to be able to make a living as I do, but they would need a headendectomy. They would need to have their heads removed and have a different head put on their body in order to make it as an artist. Tragic. Now, some of you are thinking, "Yeah, you just think you're socially incapable. You're an idiot." If you think that, then I think you're socially inept. That's what we call trolls, right? That's what we call trolls. There is now an industry for people that have nothing but to do but surf the internet and belittle people who are trying hard to make the world a better place. Oh my goodness. Okay, what do you say we change the subject? To what? I don't know. But that's how that's looking. This area is all too green, in my opinion. And so that would mean I would pick up my red pen. I would tap, 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 and try to get it running well. Yeah, Susan, right. Or they hire somebody to do it. Yeah, and it's hard for us artists because, our income is being stretched. Whew. I'd love to hire somebody to take care of all my social media needs. I would. But you're exactly correct. Okay, so it's too green. That means I'm going to add red. And if it's too stark, you see I've been painting on the front page. The problem is my red pen is acting up. Hey, tell you what, let's do this. So let me show you what I do. Gloves off, and I can do this mostly. Do I have a Q-tip here? Yes, I do. Good. Okay, so let me show you what happens. Susan, it is Mylar. I am painting on Mylar. Translucent. See that? Okay, you're right. That's a good thing for me to show. Hang on just a second. Let me walk across the room. I'll tell you what, just for fun, I'll let you watch me walk across the room. Here's my room is a mess. I'm a hardworking artist, and I have grandchildren who also love my room. Anyway, here's the kind of paper I'm using. It's Denreal, this brand, Multimedia Vellum. Borden and Riley Paper Company. That's what I'm drawing on. So there. Thank you for asking that, Susan. That's a very good question. Don't anybody else say anything till I get back here to I can see your comments. There we go. Okay, so what do you do if your pen stops working? Well, there may not be anything to do but buy a new nib. First thing, I'm dumping all the red ink out of the reservoir. I'm going to spray. So I'm going to try to catch all this ink on these tissues. And I've done this many times without you looking, so I should be okay for doing it while you watch. Just wanted you to see. Oh, zoom in here so you can see what I'm doing. Okay? So I just sprayed that out. I have a Q-tip, and I know that's a brand name, but sorry, in America, most of us call it a Q-tip. And then let's spray this to start getting the water out. Sometimes I have to put this between my teeth to loosen it. Thank goodness I did not have to do that this time. And with each piece we take apart, we have to clean it. Again, this is a liquid. Here's exactly the paint that I'm emptying out of this is magenta. By the way, all the ink that I'm using, this might be important. I'm sorry, all the paint that I'm using, I call it ink because it's pen and ink. If I called it pen and paint, nobody would know what I was talking about, but it is actually paint. All the paint that I'm using is transparent. That's very important. Same as my oil and acrylic paint technique. Still working. I'm still working in the realm of transparency. Okay, and the technique that you see me using here has been evolving. I started using rapidograph pens in 1972. That's crazy, isn't it? 46 years ago. Started using rapidograph pens 46 years ago. That is insane. You people who are young, you don't know what I mean by that. Like, for those of us who are this age, it's a complete shock to realize we are as old as we are. I think I speak for all of us, because time flies, life flies. Which, by the way, brings me to another, I was going to say earlier when I was talking about the ability to endure the pain of drudgery or monotony. I like the word drudgery better. That's a personality characteristic that serves everyone well. Let me be blunt and true. The state and federal penitentiaries of our nation are jam-packed with people who never learned to discipline their own person to endure the pain of drudgery. They couldn't hold down jobs. They wouldn't learn skills. Now, I don't know why. Sure, it's because they didn't have fathers and so on and so forth. Okay, now, I'm going to back out just a little bit. So I've got this pretty much cleaned out. Yes, I just sucked water out of that. I did indeed. Now, even after doing all this, there's no guarantee this pen's going to work. But here's what you do. Here's how you put a rapidograph pen back together. So this, I don't know if you can even see this wire. Can you see that wire? Hang on just a second. Let me try to get you. Getting there. Okay, there. Can you see that wire? I'm assuming, there you go. Yes, you can. Okay, that goes down through the middle of this nib. You can't force it. You just have to let it, you have to tap it till it drops. Till it drops. Come on. Ooh, there's some reason it's sticking. That's right, Susan. Susan, I'm tempted to ask, where are you from? Would that be violating too much? I just get a kick out of where people are. Don't, if you're not comfortable answering that, please don't. Are you in America? I'm assuming you are, because you're in the time zone here. Yeah, there's a little catch in there, and I don't know why. It doesn't feel like dried paint. You are very welcome, UO12. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Glad to be inspiring. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Okay, now, like I said, so that might be my problem. It doesn't feel like dried paint California. Hi, Susan. Good. So it's 2:15 in the afternoon. Thank you for joining me so much. Appreciate it. um, the internet really is fun in a lot of ways, isn't it? uh, okay. This should shake up and down. Vincent in Canada, my man. You know I'm Canadian, right? Do you know that? Have you been on board? I am very now. I was neutralized. I mean naturalized many years ago. But I carry my Canadian birth and my Canadian heritage with great pride, especially when it's more to my advantage to claim to be. Hey, Vincent, I don't know if you know this or not. Everybody loves Canadians, isn't it? I mean, just Canadian. In fact, I have one younger brother who went back after 50 years. He went back to his Canadian citizenship. He lives in Japan, has lived in Japan for 35 years, but he went back. Why? Because it's easier to live in Japan as a Canadian than it is an American. Anyway, yes, proud. All my aunts, uncles, and cousins are Canadian. I love them dearly. See them tragically rarely because I live, of course, a good 10, 12-hour drive from Canada now, but really respect Canada. I feel like it's given me an interesting perspective on the world and America. Having the most Canadian, I grew up in the States, but the most Canadian I have in me is my parents were, of course, spent their entire lives in Canada till I was 2 years old, so all their formative years. Quebec, oh my goodness. That's like serious Canada, dude. And is English your first language? Or are you French? I have my exposure to French Canada is fairly limited, but see, this pen is not working. After all that work, there should be a rattle happening right now, and there is no rattle, which basically means this nib is shot. So the easy part is it's $10 or $12 or $15 for a new nib. That's the easy part. I agree, Susan. I agree. We have the Americans are lucky that we have Canadians as neighbors, at least on one side. Now I'm getting in trouble. Yeah. You're English speaking, Vincent. I thought so because you write as though you're English speaking. I was going to say, but one very significant trip. I mean, we've been to Ottawa several times, Montreal a couple times, Quebec City only one time. Oh, you're French, are you? Well, very good. Thank you for joining me. Very good. What fun. My trip as a young teenager to Quebec was what's the word? Impactful, formative. My memories of that trip are indelible and very precious. Strong memories of Quebec City. About 10 years ago, my wife and I, for our 25th anniversary, we took a trip up to Prince Edward Island. So back to Canada. That was a marvelous trip. Oh my goodness, we'd go back there in a heartbeat. We started out in Raleigh, North Carolina. For those of you for you Yanks listening to me, we started out in Raleigh, North Carolina, and drove to Boston. Okay, North Carolina to Boston. Looked at our maps and went, "Oh my goodness, we are halfway to Prince Edward Island." We debated for a day or so. Okay, do we really want to continue? And we did, and we're glad we did. Little bit of trivia, again for you Yanks, for you Americans, for us Americans. How far up the East Coast can you drive? How far up north on the East Coast can you drive before you absolutely positively have to get on a boat to get to the next part of the East Coast? And the answer is Prince Edward Island. And that's only because of a 12-mile bridge that was built in the last 20 years. 12-mile bridge that goes 200 feet above sea level and above the surface of the ocean or something like that, and has a curve in the middle of it. I mean, think about it. A 12-mile bridge way up in the air that has a curve in it. Why in the world? I don't know. But it's a beautiful bridge and an amazing piece of engineering. But Prince Edward Island. After that, you have to get on a boat to get to Newfoundland. So that's the answer to that question. How far north can you drive up the East Coast before you have to get on a boat to go to the next piece of the East Coast? The answer is Prince Edward Island. Where Canada was born, of course. All you Canucks know that very well. Well, Vincent, good to have you on board. I wish I could speak some French for you. On my big trip, we learned what French fries were. Peut-être frites. No doubt my accent is atrocious, no doubt. And ice cream, creme glacée. That's what we were told. Those are two words that we knew: French fries and ice cream. And flambeau. Flambeau is a torch. Oh, my goodness. But Vincent, just to give you some idea how strange my family was, and I say this with great respect because I love my growing up family. One of the places we toured in Quebec City was Saint Anne de Beaupré. That is on vacation, mind you. That we're on vacation and we're leaving an indelible mark. Well, I have rambled on and on and on. Just about long enough, and you watched me clean a pen and fail to repair the pen. So what I'm going to have to do is take one of these other pens that has a different color in it. This will limit my mobility considerably, and put red ink in one of these. Let me see. I think this green one. Well, Vincent, and you're not Vincent, are you? You're Vincent. Sorry about that. Now that I know you're French speaking, I have a dear friend from France who is Vincent, and he's married to a lovely girl from Scotland. I'm debating making a joke here. A terrible joke, a racist joke. No, I won't. I'll just say she is a beautiful lady, and she's from Scotland. My experience is that's not a real common combination there. That's as much trouble as I'm going to get into. Anyway, they live in France. His name is Vincent, and her name is Nicole. And oh, do you mean in my pens, Susan? Yeah. Or do you mean in my painting? In my painting, I use any brand whatsoever, usually fluid, liquid. And in my, this is airbrush acrylics in my pens, Aeroflash made by Holbein. Anyway, my point being, my friend Vincent and his wife Nicole, she has the thick Scottish accent when they speak English. And when he speaks English, has a thick French accent. These are dear friends, and it's hilarious hanging out with them because when you're sitting across the table from them, when she starts talking, your brain goes, wait a minute, Scottish accent. Okay, now keep talking. Okay, I can interpret. And then when he starts talking, your brain goes, Billy, oh, wait, French accent. And then your brain has to start translating. It's hilarious, and they're both lovely people. Anyway, Vincent, good to have you on board. Yeah, Susan, painting. It's I used mostly, and I presume you haven't seen me paint. Is that correct? Which is really funny because that's what most of my YouTube is about these days, is me painting. But I buy whatever on sale, and I usually liquid. My acrylics are almost all mixed with a medium, so that it doesn't matter so much what brand. Now my red pen happens to be working at the moment. That's good news. It doesn't matter so much what brand of paint that I use. It matters what brand of medium I use. And my number one favorite medium is Golden GAC 100, followed closely by Liquitex Gloss Medium and Varnish. And my paints. Okay, thanks, Susan. And my paints are mixed, about 50-50 or 60-40 or 70-30. Mostly I'm painting with medium with a little bit of paint in it. Oh, good, thanks. So, but I'm not particular about brand. In fact, one of the things I am particular about is not being a paint snob. In fact, very shortly, one of these broadcasts, I'm going to talk about that, because the other day I was in Jerry's Artorama, my local art store of choice and convenience, and I bought a tube of Soho paint. Soho is their student brand, cheap paints. And but I bought a tube of Soho paints because I found a color of their cheap paint that I love. So that's for a broadcast coming up shortly. I'll tell you why I love it and why. So my point is, I don't go along with art snobs. Oh, I only buy the best. Oh, I only buy Rembrandt. Oh, I only buy blah 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 blah. I only buy Michael Hardin. Oh, my dear. Oh, darling, I am so good. I am so good. I only paint on linen because linen will be here for 1,000 years, and your poor, pitiful canvas paintings will only last for 500. I am a snob sometimes. I confessed it a little while ago, but whenever I am being snob, I like to admit it so you could put your snob filter on. Otherwise, good for you, Susan. Otherwise, no, I don't like snobbery. I only like self-aware snobbery. Oh my goodness, I have gotten myself in all kinds of trouble today. I'm going to go out with this. This will be not in a comment. I'm going to fade out, so to speak, while I am. This is actually orange paint, but when it's spread out thin like this, it looks more like warm yellow. Toby, I have heard of people like you, my friend. I have heard. Are you being a snob? Are you acknowledging that should we put on our snob? That's legal. It's legal to be a snob. You just have to admit it. I've heard of people like you. Why on earth do you spend time making your own paints? Yeah, Vincent, I understand. I wish that would fix it. Often it does. In fact, this little pen holder right here, you can spray water in these little wells, and it helps to keep the pens from drying up. Unfortunately, on the brush that I just showed you a minute ago, after taking it all apart, clearly it is not it's not a stuck ink problem. It's more serious than that. It's probably a mechanical issue of some kind. Yeah, Toby, I know people like you. I've heard of people like you. And it's okay to be a snob, especially when you admit it. I like that. But why? I've got my life is so schedule crunched. Why do you make your own? I figure, Charvan, my friend in France, Mr. Charvan, does a much better job than I could ever possibly do. Or is it just fun to you? I mean, I certainly do things in my life that don't make sense. I just do them because I like doing it. Not very many, but some. Anyway, and that you may have to answer my question on another day, Toby. And Toby, forgive me, you live somewhere far away, don't you? You're not far away from who? I live far away from you. Let's get straight here. You live in a perfectly logical, normal place. It is I who live far away from you. Are you my yeah, Susan asks, is it cheaper to buy? I would doubt it. People often ask me if I stretch my own canvases, and the answer is, oh my goodness, only if I have to. And I do plenty of canvas stretching. If some of you Daniel Smith, Waterman. Good. Thanks for that recommendation. I have used. Toby. There we go. I can understand that. You sound like a serious artist, my friend. What a wonderful way to start the day. I love it. A real a real artisan among us. And Toby, where do you live? Did you hear that question? Anyway, no, I have to stretch plenty of canvases, but no, given the opportunity, are you kidding? There's no way I can do it as consistently and cheaply as our poor dear slave labor friends in China, which is where I'm sure most of my canvases are stretched. Every time I buy something, really, really cheaply, like a stretched canvas, I shake my head and think, oh, the poor political prisoners. I'm not sure this is true, but I suspect it is, either political or what's the word? Financial, prisoners in China who are making this stuff so that us Americans can live in relative luxury. Yeah, I agree. I love to watch paint being made too. I had that delight I mentioned a minute ago. Charvin, Charvin. Yeah, hey Toby, I am pretty far from you. I thought so. I knew you were. Forgive me for forgetting, because I'm sure I have known that. I know you've told me that before. I couldn't remember if it was Finland or New Zealand. Two about equally far places from me. Oh my goodness. I am very far from you, Toby. Yes. Yes. Let's get Toby live in Finland and showing us making paints. Oh, what a romantic notion. Toby, I have been close. I have not been to Finland, but I've been closer than most Americans. My wife and I spent a delightful half week on the island of Bornholm in the Baltic Sea, part of Denmark. So that's as close as I've been to Finland. Does that count? It's a lot closer than where I am right now. And when people ask me, like in a maybe like a party, this is like a party question. Forgive me, I keep turning you so you can see my face just a little bit. Where's the most romantic place or enchanting place you've ever been in your life? I have an instant answer. The answer is the island of Bornholm. And of course, I'm saying that with a horrible American accent, I know, because I can't say it with the delightful Danish accent. My wife and I seriously considered moving to Denmark in 1986. Yeah, that's right. Toby's just about ready to. You're burning the midnight oil there, Toby. It's getting late there, isn't it? I think it's 10:30 at night, maybe 11:30. Your day is almost over. Yeah. So if you do show us you're making some paint, and it'll be midday here and morning there. Okay, folks, I've had it with wrestling with this red pen. So this has been absolutely delightful. Thank you to all of you, Vincent, Susan, Toby, and all the others for sharing. This has been really fun. I have, as you can see, many hours to go yet. I originally guesstimated 30 hours. Now I'm sure it's going to be more like 40 hours. Why would I do such a thing? Well, because at the end of it, I will have a world-class piece of pen and ink artwork that perhaps nobody else has ever done. So, yeah, I'm not being paid what it's worth. I'm being paid. Good to have you, too. UO12. Good to have you. Thank you very much for joining us. We're about to sign off. So again, part of why would I spend so much hour? Because yes, I just am crazy enough. I'm crazy enough artist that I'm willing to do some things that I can say, as far as I know, nobody else has done this. Okay, you guys have been great. Thanks.